Let's get a political analysis from Sandile Swana, who joins us now to unpack his thoughts about this conference and the state of the ANC in the province. Sandile Swana, always good to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Peter, and your viewers.
All right, so, so much has been said about this conference and what's happened so far, the court cases, the delays. What's your take on what you've seen and heard so far? What does it tell us?
The first thing that it tells you is that maybe you are looking at three different factions of some kind, to the extent that there would even be a candidate who does not belong to a specific faction, at least one. Secondly, they've tried to negotiate a single slate and they've not succeeded, which means that the battle between the main factions of the African National Congress is a fight to the death of the factions and of the ANC itself, because as many commentators have already pointed out, the ANC, if you look at IEC results, the ANC in Gauteng is expected, statistically speaking, to actually lose the province electorally. So the fighting is about fighting for an ANC that is sinking, and they are going to roll and fight and hit each other and going to the bottom in a downward, a rapid downward spiral. That is where we are at the moment.
I've been hearing a lot of analysis, and one interesting question that was raised is, should the people that are contesting for positions now be thinking, when they look into the future, about a recovery plan rather than a plan for being in power?
Yeah, the plan of being in power, meaning that, as Maile was saying, that his plan is about winning the election outright. That's a ridiculous plan. That's a non-starter. The other thing is that, I just took a quick look to see, for instance, the two leaders, whether it's Panyaza Lesufi or Maile, in their core disciplines, the one being in local government, and the metros in Gauteng have actually performed dismally, and the ANC has performed dismally in those metros and lost them under his leadership, that is Maile. On the other hand, Panyaza Lesufi, if you look at the actual scores of the actual children in the townships, especially black children, their scores are not impressive at all in literacy and maths and those types of things. So these are two non-performers who are contesting for the leadership. And that is not what is going to convince the voters to actually vote for the ANC itself. They may win, one of them may win, but they are winning in a sinking boat either way.
All right, so one doesn't even know where to start, really. So it doesn't matter who wins, essentially, is what you're saying, but the party will have to move on even if they lose the province. And the question then might be, who might be a better candidate to take the party forward as a minority party in the province?
I honestly don't know. I honestly cannot talk about these leaders. In the previous period, I've read the reports when Tau was coming back, Parks Tau coming back to Gauteng. And I looked at his track record when he was here, him and Makura in partnership. It was a dismal. The city of Joburg actually, if from my perspective, actually dragged SADC, the whole of SADC, down economically. So you have a whole well-manned team of non-performers and underperformers in the leadership of the ANC in Gauteng. So to really pin your hopes, these guys need to go back to the drawing board. I think since 1994, the ANC has just been very competent at recruiting the most inept, the most unqualified and unsuitable individuals to take office in the African National Congress at virtually all levels.
We heard Leboganga Maile just now talking about the need to modernize and strengthen this party. How is that possible? How does one go about doing that unless you completely change the face of it?
Yeah, the issue of modernization is actually a euphemism. It's a disguised word. The thing that this issue of modernization is about is to actually remove the ANC from a criminal program. What I mean by that, the ANC, because of its bloated cost structure, the operating cost structure on a month-to-month basis, the salaries and so on, has forced the ANC to really dig deep into the tender systems and steal all kinds of monies to fund itself. So that is what modernization is about. But in the meantime, the ANC has not created a credible base of entrepreneurs since 1994 who can support the African National Congress. If you look at the DA in its constituency, if we're to be honest about it, you would have the likes of Bidvest, the likes of Pick and Pay, all sorts of successful companies that were built under apartheid and built through various means of white empowerment in South Africa. The ANC has not done that. You can't go even to a retail store, a credible retail store retail chain that is owned by black people. So it's just not there. Most of us are running spaza shops of various kinds. So that is going to be a loss.
All right, so the people voting this weekend, they're all party members and they're the converted. The ones that really count are probably the ones outside of the party when it comes to voting at the next election. What do you think they are feeling? Is there a real choice for them, or are we going to see a situation where they just say, I give up on politics? Because the ANC isn't doing what we had hoped? Or will the other parties see memberships growing given what's playing out?
Yes, I think that there is excitement if you're talking about the voters themselves.
Yes.
I think the voters can see a new menu and that they like. I think Action SA is taking votes seriously. I think Gauteng Mackenzie and his PA is taking votes. There's all kinds of parties that are mushrooming from non-traditional political sources. I think the old-style politics where a person tells you, I was in COSAS, I was in UDF, I was in the underground, I was in Modapi prison, that thing is out, is completely out. So the people who are going to be gaining votes are actually non-traditional politicians from what I can see now. And the last election has shown that people have got an appetite for this fresh type of politics that actually is focused on delivery. They may not be very sophisticated ideologically and so on, but they are able to say we can remove this rubbish, we can fill up the pothole, we can build schools, we can run schools. That's the type of politician that's going to really play a prominent role in 2024.
We know what the other parties have been like, particularly the Democratic Alliance, which has been for a long time the biggest opposition party. If, for example, the ANC becomes an opposition party in Gauteng, how might they operate as an opposition party?
It's actually going to be very difficult for them, because if you look at what they did, for instance, in Swana, the disruption when they were in opposition, the disruption and chaos that they created there. We've seen the likes of Mzwandile Masina being manhandled out of the council chambers at Ekurhuleni. So they do need to rethink what opposition politics are. And in fact, in a way, a lot of politicians have got to actually even throw away this vocabulary of being in opposition politics and be in constructive politics. Because, for instance, here in Gauteng, when you look at our resources, just the resources we have and the CV of Gauteng as a whole, we should be flying. When African states are at 7% of growth, we probably should be in 10 to 15%. We should be really the engine of growth. So this whole culture of arguing about things that don't exist and being total dismal non-performance economically needs to come to an end. People need to forget the idea of opposition and put constructive, high-performance ideas on the table and collaborate and accept that the voters have said, you are not the person we want.
All right, perhaps as a final question, we've run out of time. The National Elective Conference is on the horizon. What would be the consequence of either person winning in Gauteng on the National Conference, perhaps for someone like President Ramaphosa?
It looks at face value, it looks like Panyaza Lesufi would support Ramaphosa and Maile would oppose Ramaphosa.
All right, and that's where we'll leave it. Thank you very much indeed. Let's wait for the results and see what does come in eventually. But thanks for your insights tonight. All right, so that's political analyst Sandile Swana speaking to us about the ANC Provincial Conference in Gauteng. Voting is currently underway and we're waiting to see what those results might bring.